Alright YouTube, so for this vlog I'll be doing a Star Wars openings explained, or at least my opinions on the openings of the Star Wars movies. I'll be starting in released order, so I'll be going with the original trilogy. I remember back in autumn I did some Star Wars endings explained, or my opinions on the endings of each Star Wars movie, so I figured, fast forward a few months, why not make an openings to Star Wars movies, because the openings are usually more iconic, as we have the iconic screen script writing down. I don't know what to call that because I'm drawing a blank at the moment, but you guys know, oh yes, I remember now, the opening crawl it's called. Of course, that iconic Star Wars opening. So let's start with Star Wars number 1, which was originally just called Star Wars, but now we know as A New Hope. That opening is super iconic. Rogue One, as well as a lot of the lore and extended universe, make it even more epic, as we know what happened moments before the little rebel ship was escaping the massive Imperial ship, which the little rebel ship stands no chance. But once the Imperial ship crashes onto the rebel ship, it's the rebels versus stormtroopers, which the rebels stand a decent chance, as the stormtroopers are terrible at aim, although they do seem decently shooters at the rebels, surprisingly, which leads into a Star Wars theory that the Force was protecting the protagonists against the stormtroopers' fire, which was they were so bad at shooting. But it's a vlog for another day. I'll stick to the topic. So once the rebels are all shot down by the stormtroopers, Darth Vader, the GOAT himself, comes in, and he actually has very little screen time. I believe only 17 minutes in the original A New Hope Star Wars, which I found shocking because he leaves such an impressive and amazing impact on Star Wars. And going back to what I was saying, we know in Rogue One that he absolutely slaughtered those rebels, but shout out to that one rebel who risked his life, or actually had his life ended, because he handed the rebel plans to the other Star Wars character who took the plan and ran onto the ship. And then we see Leia and the droids have the plans, so it's definitely an iconic opening, as Darth Vader then chokes one of the rebel commanders, not half, but pretty much chokes him to death in hopes that he'll give up the plans. But Leia Organa has the plans, and Leia gives the plans to R2-D2, and R2-D2 goes with C-3PO. They go inside the escape pod, and it lands on Tatooine, which, this Empire does not shoot down that escape pod. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, which was another plot hole I heard. That was kind of laziness, so that ultimately led to the destruction of the Death Star, which was the ending of Star Wars A New Hope, and this definitely kicked off the series well. So this opening gets 2 thumbs up from Jones Beach. Opening number 2, one of the sequels that was even better than the original, The Empire Strikes Back. It starts off on a planet that is very cold, known as Hoth, an icy planet, which is very different and a lot of contrast from the first Star Wars movie, but that sets it up well. We see the Empire hunting down, and they send their little escape pods to fight and look for the plans, as they're sending drones and droids all across the universe to try to find where the rebels are hiding. But the rebels have not been caught just yet, and Luke Skywalker is on his Wampa, or what I cannot remember what the little creature was called. But point is, he's searching out for drones to shoot down and, make sure the Empire does not find them. But unfortunately, Luke gets attacked, not by the Empire, but by the Wampa itself, which was a big scary space Yeti, and the Yeti brings Luke to its cave and eats his horse half to death, or entirely to death. I don't know why I keep saying half to death. And then Luke uses the Force and focuses in. He locks in and gets his lightsaber, strikes himself down from the icy ceiling, and then he cuts the Wampa's arm off, and Wampa screams. Probably more Wampas would come in and kill Luke, so that's probably why Luke just made a run for it, because I read a comment on YouTube once that was funny, where it would have been funny if Luke completely killed the Wampa and wore his coat as like a pimp coat. That would have been cool, but probably foolish, because more Wampas would come, and that would be the end of Luke Skywalker. So I think, as great as The Empire Strikes Back's opening is, as it really sets up the movie well, I think the ending is even more iconic, as we see that iconic shot. I say iconic way too much, but it's the rebel, our medical ship, and Luke and Leia, C-3PO and R2-D2 watching over the galaxy as the Empire has struck back and gotten their revenge. But the Return of the Jedi is the next Star Wars episode, which was pretty cool too, and I'll talk about that opening just now. So in Return of the Jedi, C-3PO and R2-D2 are walking to Jabba's palace in hopes to give a bounty hunter bounty and deal to get Han Solo back, who was frozen in carbonite, in exchange to Jabba the Hutt, as Jabba the Hutt also got his revenge, similar to Darth Vader and the Emperor. And we see the Empire is building a new Death Star that they're making in a lot less time than the first one. And there's all the army, and I'm completely forgetting what happened, so let me get back on my thoughts. But yeah, the opening scene is that they're building a new Death Star, and the droids are going after, with the hopes of exchanging a bounty for Han Solo back. And Luke Skywalker, of course, like, you know, he's building his lightsaber, which was a deleted scene where initially, I'm talking about this deleted scene, by the way, he turns it on and part of it is green, part of it is red. I think that was a super cool deleted scene that I really wish we had seen in the movie, because, like, you know, we also hear Darth Vader talking to Luke Skywalker, who later accepts that Vader is his father and completely acknowledges it. And, like, you know, he's tempted to go to the dark side, but ends up going back to the light side with the green lightsaber and locks it in. So it's definitely a super cool scene that I think would have made the Return of the Jedi opening even better. So to talk about the Return of the Jedi ending, we see the Force ghosts, and sometimes it's Anakin's actor from the prequels, sometimes it's Anakin's sort of actor from the original trilogy. But one thing's for sure, we see Ben Kenobi and Yoda and Luke Skywalker looking over happy at them, and it was definitely a happy ending, as we also see a lot of other planets celebrating with the destruction of the Empire. So yeah, this has been my opinion and my initial sort of explanation and interpretation of the Star Wars original trilogy openings. I could talk about the prequel and sequel trilogy, but I'm going to save those for vlogs for another day. But I will briefly talk about one of the prequel openings, which was Revenge of the Sith, which is coming back to theaters in like 2 weeks. I am so excited for that, by the way. And I remember hearing originally the opening battle scene of Revenge of the Sith was initially an hour long, which I'm curious to know how that would have gone, because part of me thinks it would have dragged on, but the logical part of me is super curious to see how Lucas would have taken this in, what direction Lucas would have taken this in. So will we ever know? I don't know, but stay tuned for more Jones Beach vlogs. Thank you all so much for watching. I love Star Wars. Goodbye.